coding, understand the basic of processes, understand the basics of how to leverage. Because if you get into a good company, it's not just the DS and algo that's going to get you through. It's also how to utilize the system better, that can get you a very optimized solution, right? Wherever you do.
Right.
Or even if you go into a little further, when you're a fresher, yes, you just have to, you are, hello?
Better. Right.
Sorry,
So,
I think
yeah,
somebody is speaking.
no. So, like you're right. I mean, a lot of students, because like a lot of companies coming for campus placements, they test you on the DS algo aspects. That is what
Mm-hmm.
most people prepare for.
Mm-hmm.
So, what else can people prepare for other than these, DS algo questions and like competitive coding? Like, how else can students prepare for like the software engineering role?
To be very honest, mostly in most of the cases, DS and algo is going to get you through as a college fresher.
Yeah.
But it's important to understand some of the skills, because maybe once you uh, get into career world, you probably may not be able to go back and learn things which you have time to learn now. So one basic thing that everybody should probably start doing, and I started doing it very early in my career, and it really helped me. Somebody suggested me that start asking why for each of the things. Everything that you see, you can't make every solution yourself, right? You might have seen simple things like TCP protocol, UDP protocol, and certain things, right? You would have never probably most of you would have never given a thought where why a protocol is needed between two systems, right? If
Right.
there is a connection, why is a protocol needed? Why not, let's say computer A has its own implementation, computer B has its own implementation. What's the harm,
Right.
right? There are many companies, Cisco, Juniper. Why are all of them coming together to have a protocol together, or have a norm together, uh, and then implementing things on the basis of that protocol? Why is it needed? Why can't they just go around, have their own implementation, and do some certain things? It's because if you send the data from one system, let's say it's implemented by Juniper, and it's received by Cisco, all you see are bits and bytes, right? All you see is a data, a set of bits that you can make sense of. For example, if you get 5 bytes, you don't know whether it's an integer and a character or 5 characters,
Right.
right? All you see is 5 bytes,
Right.
right? So that's why a protocol is needed. So these kind of information, small things, are very important for somebody to come in, start handling things,
Right.
because it's not just about DS and algo, which is very important, by the way. I'm not saying that DS and algo is not important. It's very, very important, but also to understand the project and grasp it easily, you need all kinds of knowledge of a software development. That gets really important for you to get going faster.
Right.
Uh, have you done internship?
So like, I'm not a software developer myself, but
Okay.
so what, I'll give you a little bit of context. So like, we are running
Mhm.
a community called Flink Hub.
Okay.
It's for alumni of different colleges to get together in like interest-based groups. So software
Okay.
development is like one of our interest groups.
Mhm.
Similarly, we have data science, and we have other things like entrepreneurships, startups. So like, this is
Okay.
the startup that like I am doing basically.
Interesting.
Right. So
That's
our
good.
audience, in our audience, like, so this is being streamed right now. So like, people are there who are in these groups and they're watching this.
Okay.
So so like, so we try to get questions from them beforehand, and like even in chat, like people put up questions. So
Mhm.
like, one of the common questions is like, how do I get, so many colleges don't have like campus placement from like good companies, right? So
Okay.
what is the like off campus process like? How can I get shortlisted? For example, startups, would they hire me as a fresher? So like, what is your take on that?
They don't want to.
Right.
Let me be very brutally honest. They don't want to unless you have something substantial. So the things that work are referrals, one
Right,
thing. Second thing, if some kind of company, like if you have heard about interview bit, scalar, upgrad,
right,
these
right,
kind of company get you referred once you have your courses through them. They
right,
can refer you in such companies. There are other things like I don't remember the name of it. I'll probably message you and you can broadcast that name. Uh, e-litmus. So you can give exams there, and some of the companies like to select from there. But generally, to be very honest, startups do not like to hire freshers, and the ones I mean, the ones who want to hire freshers from outside college do not go there. They are not the right companies.
right, right. So you mentioned like programs which Upgrad and Interview Bit
Mhm.
and Scalar have.
Right.
So what is there in this program that like companies hire candidates that come out of this program? So can that skill
Mhm.
be learned outside of such programs also?
They can be. And I'm a mentor on Scalar.
Okay.
So I'll tell you what happens there. Somebody joins in Scalar, and similar situation is there in Upgrad, where there will be a TA assigned to you who will teach you things on certain topics. It's basically DS, algo, and design. So you would learn those skills from a TA, and there will be mentor sessions every, let's say, 10 days. If you want it, you will schedule the sessions, and the mentor will guide you how to shape your career better, or wherever you are not feeling confident. So sometimes we also teach certain topics to people because they still do not get very confident after the TA sessions. So these kind of things. What happens after this file is that then there's a guarantee that you have got better, right? Because they have spent so much time in teaching you and all those things. So that way, companies can depend more on such kind of companies, or such kind of platforms, that the people coming out of it will be good. But that doesn't mean that you cannot learn without such platforms. Even if I talk about interview bit, there is a platform in interview bit where you can just go and self learn. There are specific topic related questions attached on it, which you can go and try to solve them. There will be answers given on the side by side. So you can see what's the best answer. You can learn from it, and next time you can try to implement it yourselves. There is Lead Code, there is Geeks for Geeks. There's a lot of such platforms, but I would suggest that try to go for a platform like InterviewBit. I specifically like it because there are topics. It's not mindless reading. There are certain topics which you can learn, and once you have learned it through topics, you master those topics rather than just mastering the questions that you have.
Right. So again, like talking about the programs, uh, like apart from the questions on DSL Go and like teaching about these things, how to solve these problems,
Mhm.
like what else is there that, so why do companies like hire candidates from there and not from the outside? Is it because it's easier to like filter candidates?
Yes, that's the main reason. See, any company would not want to spend too much time of their developers,
Right,
because we are interviewing people, right? And we are spending time doing that. We
right,
do not want to keep interviewing the people whom we reject more than select, right?
right,
Because that means that we are not spending time working, which is our bread and butter. So that's why it's easier for any, and especially for startup where there would be too much work pressure. They wouldn't want to spend too much time on these things, so they would like to have filtered candidates.
right, right. So like apart from the DSL Go part, like what can what do students do to like be ready to contribute to, let's say, a startup environment where you're expected to contribute from day one? Like maybe you have to work on some projects, things like that.
That helps. But again, the question is how strong your resume is. So what would get you to get their eyes upon on your resume. So it's not every day that they would want to. I mean, they go through so many resumes, and they do apply filters. They do apply filters. So we used to talk with a lot of a lot of recruiters, and their main format is that they will see that how people were selected, and they will go ahead with those formats time and again, until it fails. So if, let's say, in your college there were too many selections, they will go for your college again and again until it starts failing. If there is some kind of companies which from which they could hire candidates easily, they will go for those companies. They will target those companies. But if, I mean, if you think about this model, the problem with that model is that certain students do not fit into such models,
Right.
right? And that's the problem. That's where they get filtered out mostly. So there has to be something very impactful on your CV to get noticed.
Right. Right.
And second thing is, you can probably, once you have such things, you can probably a little shamelessly go on LinkedIn and pursue recruiters. Try to, get their attention.
Right.
Try to showcase that you have done certain things that, I mean, that makes you deserving for a chance.
Right. Right. So let's talk a little bit about, like once you get that first job, like growing in your career.
Mhm.
So, like, how can people do that? So, let's say you got your first job in software. Now you want to grow in your software career. So, like,
Mhm.
what are things that you focused on, and like what can people do in general?
Two things. The first thing I already talked about, the why part. There's one problem, and there are a lot of memes about this, that the product manager will come to you with certain requirements. Then once you start developing it, he will come again and change the requirements, right?
Right.
Or once you are about to deliver, they will change the requirements. That happens only because of one reason.
Right.
Nobody really tries to target the fact that why is the product needed, what is the overall culture, what is the overall requirement, what is the overall impact of the product. Nobody really cares about it. They just want to learn from client what they need, and they try to deliver. Many a times client even don't know what they need. It's only through the process that they also get to know that, oh, we didn't need this, we needed that. But somebody who really thinks about the whole ecosystem, who tries to understand the whole project and then tries to think about his feature, because all you're not getting to develop the whole product yourself, right? You're
Right.
just going to develop one particular feature, one small thing, right? And then another, but at one certain time you will be developing one feature. So while you are developing the feature, try to understand what the product is about and where that feature fits in,
Right.
right? That not only helps you in that scenario, it also helps you in future, where you start getting a knack of design, a better designer. You start getting a better in designing. That helps you in future a lot. That's one part of it. The second part of it, never try to win small battles. There are a lot of people who try to take shortcuts and not try to learn things, and just, I mean, mindlessly do their job. Never try to win those small battles. The only difference between you know a fresher and an experienced software engineer is the things that he has seen. There are a lot of things that a software engineer, there are a lot of scenarios that a experienced software engineer has seen that a fresher probably hasn't seen yet. That's the only difference. It's not about talent, right? It's just about how much you have seen in experience. And the more you see through things, the more you don't mindlessly, go ahead and implement everything and try to understand everything. The more you do that, the more experience you get with short amount of time.
Right. Right. So, and then talking about like the hiring process. So, like you joined Microsoft after,
Mhm.
after working in a few companies. So, like, what is the hiring process like? What do companies evaluate? Like, what are the different rounds?
Okay. So uh, every company has its own process, to be very honest. But generally, most of the companies have some things in common. So what happens is that there would be a hiring manager for a team. Generally, people are selected for a team, except for one or two companies where there are multiple openings, and you get to decide where to go, right? So apart from that, what happens is that generally first one or two rounds are all about how much DS algo knowledge you have. A little bit of design is practiced, is checked. Then comes the hiring manager, where it's little bit of all of these. Apart from that, it's also about how is your behavior, how can you fit into the team, how good you process, how good you know about things that they are interested in. A little bit of impact is that also, but that's not a mandatory case. So if I'm working on, it's a specific technology, I would prefer somebody who is working on that technology already, but that's not a mandatory case. Apart from all of these, there's one particular thing that every interviewer in every interview checks for. That's and every interviewer is biased on that, is how intelligently you are tackling the problem.
Okay.
It's called IHP, Intelligence Horsepower in Microsoft, but that's something that every interviewer checks for. How do you approach the solution? How methodical, how impressive a problem solver you are. So that's one thing which is very important. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. So, like, can you elaborate on this problem solving aspect, like maybe with a sample, like example?
Okay. So let's say, but having said that, okay, let me ask you two questions. One is specifically for problem solving, and another one is software plus problem solving. So let's say that there is uh, ax square plus bx plus c equal to something,
Right.
equal to fx, right? This is a function. This is a software function, fx, which
Right.
takes x and gives you the value of ax square plus bx plus c.
Right.
All right. From this, you have to find out, and you can give any value of x. Nobody knows what's the content of this function and how it performs. Only you can call the function and give a value of x, and you will get an output.
Right.
Did it make sense till now?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So now the question is, how do you find the value of A, B, and C? The properties of A, B, and C is that the values are between 0 to 9.
Okay.
How would you want to approach this?
So this is basically a quadratic equation, and you have to find A, B, and C, basically.
Right. That's correct.
So I know the formula. I mean, what I know is like the formulas, but like what
Yeah,
people are looking for
that's
is
fair.
the process, right?
Yeah, I'll probably go ahead with the
Yeah. Sure.
explanation, but
Yeah.
so I'll see that whether you are able to come up with any solution or not
Right.
yourself.
Right.
If not, I'll give you the next hint. You
Right.
said it's a quadratic equation, right? You
Right.
were able to relate these two things. They'll
Right.
probably give three values of x for which you will get three equations and would try to solve from that, right?
Right.
Right? Ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to this, x squared plus bx plus c equal to this. You're putting values of x and then you're getting three equations and
Right.
you're solving it. That's one part of it. Now I'll ask you to stress upon the fact that I said A, B, and C have a value of 0 to 9.
Right.
Possible values of between the range 0 to 9.
Right.
So I'll see whether you come up with something or not. Then I'll suggest that what about using the value of x as 10? And then if you see if A, B, and C are within 0 to 9 and the and x is 10, then A takes the 10th place, sorry, 100th place, B takes 10th place, and C takes unit place in any equation,
Right.
irrespective of the value of A, B, and C, if it is between 0 to 9 range,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Till now, also, I'm trying to judge you on your IHP. Next phase I'm coming upon is that uh, I'll then ask you, now you cannot use 10, use anything except for 10 or 10's multiples. Then how are you able to? How are you able to translate this information into, let's say, uh, 11 or 12? And just like decimal, you use the base as 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. and you are able to do the same thing in base 11, base 12. So it's more about how easily you are able to think about things. That's one part of it. And second thing is, if I am giving you hints, how easily are you able to connect the dots? So
Right.
based on these two things, I'll judge you.
Okay. So this like this kind of skill, like you earlier mentioned, it be developed by solving problems on these like Geeks for Geeks, Leak Code.
Yes and no. A bit of it comes into you, but even if you have it in you, sometimes those skills are not honed properly. So practice makes it better, much better.
Right. So I mean, solving these problems, these kind of problems again and again.
Yes, that helps.
Right. Right. So apart from that, so uh, what do companies look for in the projects that you have done, or in your previous work experience or your internships? Like, is there a lot of scrutinization in that, and what do they look for?
A bit, yes, not too much. Again, it's more about, do I need to spend time on it? Are you worthy enough to be spent time on? That's the only factor. So if you genuinely, and I should have faith in you, in your CV, that you have genuinely spent time in development, you have genuinely worked on something, worked on your projects. And
Right.
if I see that in your CV, if I am convinced that you have done some good work and you're not bluffing, then I'll be eager to spend time on with you and eager to hire you.
Right. Right. So, like you mentioned, one of the biggest challenges is getting your CV shortlisted, and
True.
recruiters have this kind of filtering system that certain colleges, people working in certain companies,
Hmm.
because of which many people don't fall in that criteria.
Okay.
Like, and it's a very hard thing to overcome for them. So, what can
Hmm.
they do? Like, I know it's a very like difficult question, but like, what can they probably do to actually get noticed?
So again, first thing is, don't try to win. Don't try to win small battles. Don't try to target specific companies. Two things: apply for every company possible in product line. Only apply for product companies. Try not to apply for service companies. That's the first part.
Right.
Second thing is, even if you're not interested in a company, for the first 3 years, give every interview possible.
Right.
Uh, the first part is for getting your CV shortlisted. There might be some company where your CV looks better, and you should probably get your CVs checked with somebody, and he should be able to tell you whether your CV is good enough or not. If not, then take some pointers and get your CV good. Then apply wherever possible. That's one part of it, and give interviews, because no matter how much you prepare, an interview can really tell you how much depth you have or where you should be working on. So for first 3 years, it's very mandatory that you specifically go for the companies, interviews for the companies where you don't want to go,
Right.
because there you are getting experience on what you should be focusing on.
Right. Right.
Does
So,
that answer your question?
so I mean, this works for people who have already got into some company and like they have a job, and they can prepare for interviews on the side, right?
Which part?
What you mentioned, like people in the first 3 years of their career, they can practice interviews, basically like apply for different companies and try to like practice that process.
That's not true. It works for even the freshers. So if you are mindlessly applying for every company,
Right.
it's not that you won't get any call.
Right.
It's just that you may not be able to get filtered in bigger companies, which is okay as long as you are smart enough to select a good company rather than a big company.
Right. So, okay, I mean, this makes sense for the application process and like getting into that first job. Apart from that, like, so a lot of students these days are working on small, small projects and doing things to actually like fill up the resume.
Mhm.
What are your thoughts on that? Like, what kind of projects should they focus on, or like anything is good to actually show some experience?
So uh, make sure that whenever you're selecting a project, it's something innovative. Yes, that's good. But apart from that, it's something that gives you a hands-on, like really hands-on, where you develop things a lot and not just depend on some library, some model, where you get to develop something innovative. And then after that, uh, see, whenever we interviewed people and asked them about their projects, they started with something very innovative, like very mind-bogglingly innovative. The idea was very good, but the implementation was really shitty, right?
Okay.
So don't just be hung up. And that's the problem with Indian startups also. All the Indian startups, most of the Indian startups that we see really get hung up on the idea rather than the implementation. So make sure that your implementation is good enough for you to, have an impact. Anyway, pick up some things that catches somebody's mind, but it's not very common. Even something simpler like steganography or something like that helps you, right? Simple things like creating a tool to hide data in normal images or normal files. Uh, Understanding those things, that's impactful, full, that's innovative, as well as it also gives you a hands-on experience. You're not using any model. You're not using anything style. I
Right,
mean, already, which is already there.
right. And what about hackathons? Like participating in hackathons, does that add to your profile? Like again,
It
we talked
definitely
about,
helps.
yeah,
Yeah.
getting that resume shortlisted. It helps, right?
It really helps. That helps. And the second thing that helps is if you have a coder rank or something like that, or you have finished something online, like there, we talked about lead code, we talked about um, code chef and all those things. Or we can talk about top coder. So if you have some remarkable rank on these platforms, that also is catchy, right?
Right,
That also people can start up noticing.
right,
So it's all about getting noticed.
right. Like, is there a possibility that companies can even like notice you from these platforms like Hacker Rank and
Yes, they can.
right,
Yes, it's possible. But even if they don't, make sure that once you have something similar, you probably put it on your profile and highlight that in your profile.
right,
And anybody who's looking at it should, their eye should first fall upon these things, your achievements.
right? So, like, this is about the hiring process. We've
Mhm.
talked about that. What about after somebody gets hired? So, you must have seen freshers getting hired, even in Microsoft. So,
Mhm.
what is the biggest learning curve after they come into the company? Like, what are the things that they need to focus on learning?
So there is a huge difference between bookish knowledge and development knowledge, and that's a shocker. Almost every new software engineer has to face whenever they come up, and we have had a habit of solving a problem that is given to us, right? And then you come into this world and you first start with bug fixing. Bug fixing
Right,
is where you have the whole product in front of you and you have been given a bug and you have to find out how this bug is generated and how to fix it.
right,
Now there's not a specific problem and a specific solution that you have to do, right?
right,
So that's where understanding the whole ecosystem helps and understanding how to fix it. It's not just about the fix. Sometimes we fix things only to realize later that we have introduced other bugs because we didn't understand the whole system. So
right,
that's where I'm talking about, understanding the product, not taking shortcuts, not just trying to fix your bug, but with that, understanding the whole system. And it's okay. Initially, whenever you start, it will seem a bit overwhelming. That happens with everyone. It's not a problem. You'll get through it. Everybody does.
right. So this thing is like something that companies expect that people will only come in and learn. They don't expect you to know this, like learn this beforehand.
That's true. In some startups, they have a cutthroat uh, process, but generally, nobody expects you to be a pro just after, as soon as you join.
Right. what are other things like, so working in a team environment? I mean, these are things probably people haven't done before, like
Mhm.
uh, changing, like code reviewing, and like working in a team environment. I mean, are these things like important to know beforehand, or like it's okay to come in and learn these things?
It's okay to, I mean, not care about code review part as of now. You would be taught those things. It's very important to be a good team player because most of the companies that you would go into as an intern or as a fresher, even as an intern, you would look for yourself to be converted, right? And that's the most of the people have that goal in their mind. So when you're doing this, it's very important that the teammates like you and you like your teammates because you are going to spend a lot of time there. People should like you and you should like people. That's the biggest, I mean, one of the biggest things that you should be focusing on. Be
Right,
likable and make sure that, I mean, you gel in well with your teammates. You're going to help them, they are going to help you.
right. And again, like, what about internships? So, like, uh, what do companies expect in an intern? And are there enough like companies who are okay with interns coming in maybe for a short duration and like doing something? Because a lot of companies want people who can contribute in the long term. So, where do interns fit in?
See, the idea of internship is, there are various reasons for having interns. First thing, uh, it's very hard to hire somebody and then fire him because it's a mark on the company's name, right? So internship is a very easy way to hire somebody and not hire somebody and check them and see whether they should be hired in future or not.
Right,
That's the easiest way you can judge somebody in a longer period without having to fire them,
right.
right? That's one part of it. And the second part is that there are some of the works which you don't want your software engineers to do.
Hmm.
And let's face the honest part. There are many companies which does that. There are some of the works which you don't want your software engineers to do because if they don't like this work, they'll probably go to some other company. Now it might be very easy for them to switch roles, but for you as a company, you have invested heavily in every person that you have hired,
Right,
heavily, heavily. So if he's a good candidate, you don't want to lose him,
right,
right? So there are some such tasks which probably they, if they don't want to do such tasks, it's generally given to interns or to people who are, I mean, let's say contractors or something. So
right,
that's why these people exist. Uh, but having said that, I've also seen some of the companies which give very good work to interns.
right,
And that's where they are trying to judge these interns on the same basis. So it's really helpful. So generally, they have some projects shortlisted for interns to come in. They pick it up, and if they do good, they are converted.
right. So, in the first case where companies are hiring interns so that to evaluate them for the like long term hiring,
Uh-huh.
can is that like a good option after college? Like, let's say you haven't got into any company, is this a
Mhm.
good option to get into, like an internship with a company?
If you know you are good,
Okay,
if you know you are good, and there are certain people who are not good in interviews, but they are good with code.
right,
They just don't have, just haven't mugged up all the questions and all. So they know that they are good. If you are good, then that's the best option you can ever have.
right,
You get ample time to prove yourself and then get converted.
right. But like, what kind of companies generally have this process of first taking an intern and then is it mostly startups who have this kind of a process?
It's mostly big companies.
No, so that is the summer internship or the college internship, right? But
Mhm.
what about people who have just graduated? They haven't got like a job in
So yeah,
software.
so even bigger companies, this process is there. So you have to approach in the right method, or bomb every recruiter with your requests.
Right,
So that happens. That happens in every company.
right, right. So, like you said, that is one possible path that people can take right out of college.
Right.
Great. I think like we have covered a lot of things about the software journey and how to like start it. Before like wrapping up, is there anything you want to share? Like, so again, focusing on, people in final year in college, like what, they have time on their hands. So like, just as a summary, like what should they do with that time?
Irrespective of whatever happens, don't get disheartened and do not try to take a hasty decision. Keep an eye for good companies, not just big companies again, good companies, and try to get into any product development company initially, and keep developing your skills. Irrespective of whichever company you get into, there's always room for getting into any good company.
Right. Great. Great, Sumit. Thanks a lot for that. Hope people can pick up something from this and apply it in their life.
I hope that I was of any help.
Definitely you were.
Thank
Thanks
you,
a lot.
Joe.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
You too. Bye bye.